Okay. Okay, alright. Alright, I should be good to go, I guess. And I'll just use my phone to take a look at the... Or you know what? Yeah, I should use my phone. Mute that. More people trying to... Well, just gonna now use YouTube, go to my channel, my videos. This should show me my live streams. Well, it's not popping up yet on my phone, but hopefully that's not necessary. It's maybe taking me a moment just to simply make sure that I am actually streaming properly. Before this stream starts, this is a declaration that if anyone tries to join to control what I am saying, to control my free speech here, they are going to get kicked off. It's that simple. And it looks like my stream is going how it should. Alright. Then I'll take this, put it up here. And so this is not the normal kind of thing that I'd be actually doing on my channel. As a matter of fact, just recently today, what is this program called again? OBS. OBS is something that used to actually work a good bit. Didn't for a while, but now as it stands, it is actually working as intended, and that is fantastic. However, I'm going to have to basically make a declaration here that is to be made loud and clear, and that is that I will not be standing for censorship on what I am going to be saying here. Whether it is from people who are actually related to Frankie or at least was his friend. And I said he because whether people like it or not, the point is that Frankie was a guy. And as it is even starting with saying that, he was a really, really good friend of mine. If I'm being completely honest, we didn't have an appropriate friendship, as I met him through basically very inappropriate means. And I'll leave it that vague because I don't want to go into those details for the sake of how this video is in memory of Frankie Barrientos. He was also known as Francesca, and online was known by the username of DevGirl Neko. He was definitely very important to me. He was always a really good friend. He made what was my Night Ninja logo that I ended up using for quite some time. He was a very, very good friend with an amazing heart. I hold no grudges against him. I actually supported him for quite some time when I met him as basically the first person to share with me this whole transgender concept that was just exploding in popularity as time went on. And, well, if I'm being completely honest here, he definitely had a very, very harsh suicidal battle that he was facing ever since I knew him, but probably long before that, because he didn't become transgender when I met him or while I was friends with him. He was transgender before I met the guy, and because of this, he was definitely my first introduction into whatever this transgender concept was in the first place. I already said that. But he introduced the concept to me, and he got me fairly early on, initially very supportive of this whole movement, of this whole idea. And this was in part having to do with the fact that I was a new ager when he met me, and I became a born-again Christian not too long back, but I've been changing a lot of what I originally believed as a Christian now who was once a new ager. I believed that this transgender viewpoint that people have on their own lives and on the lives of others had something to do with past lives. But when you become a Christian and you realize the design that God has in souls, in human beings, reincarnation is something that just simply does not exist. Now, why you think it could be the case may have to do with demon attachments, and these demon attachments having known people in the past that you suddenly have some belief you were at one point in a past life. And because of that, it builds this belief with people. The truth is that Frankie clearly from a very early age was struggling with this whole belief that he was somehow a woman who was born in a man's body, and that God made some sort of mistake. And the truth is that God doesn't make a mistake about his design, about how he created you, about the body you were born in, so on and so forth. God has a perfect plan and a perfect design. And whether Frankie actually was willing to take a look at what Christianity was truly pointing out was going on in the world or not. The point is that he was definitely someone who was conflicted over probably even more than this. Because ever since I knew the guy, he was suicidal. And it definitely bummed me out because it wasn't like I didn't have my own things that I was struggling with, especially when I used to live in South California in the area known as San Bernardino. What I knew is that he however felt like this friend that I could really connect with, that I really, beyond how inappropriate we may have met, he was very supportive of the dream I had for becoming a game developer. And not only that, but he was just all around such a good friend, such a caring guy. He was there for me when a very disappointing part in my life happened with my dad and I having a falling out, as he was really good for talking to at that time, and I appreciated him. I genuinely did. And for many years before I became a Christian, I was supporting this transgender identity situation that Frankie had. I was referring to him as Francesca, and I was calling him she, her, you get the idea. I was very supportive of how he thought his existence really was. And I'd say the thing that we actually connected the most on was both wanting to be game developers, as he was already going to college to do it. He already had an interest in becoming an indie game developer, which was about the same route that I wanted to take, due to how much I noticed that the likes of the game industry was not going to simply go all in on a idea that they couldn't control, an idea that they couldn't monetize as well. And we were also huge nerds over anime and stuff like that as well. In the end, we both were just very much connecting over a lot. And because of this, I genuinely was worried about Frankie's life and well-being for quite some time, because of how much he just never stopped talking about it. And part of what was hurting him, from what he told me, was that his family did not support him feeling this way. And one day, being suddenly shown to me, suddenly addressing me too, I panicked that day, and thanks to my good friend Alexander McCafferty, him and I went out of our ways to call the police that was local to his area, give them the suicide note, and we worked together to basically find what building he was on that he was going to jump off of, and barely just in time, the police ended up finding him and getting him off the building before he could jump. And that day I was beyond relieved. I felt like I actually accomplished something along with my best friend from high school, and it meant a lot to me because I wasn't even there. I never knew Frankie in person. I simply knew him online. We played games on Steam. We talked a lot. I won't go into the details of the other stuff. We were very good friends. We geeked out over dumb, geeky things that we both enjoyed. And when it came to all of that, I was very disappointed finding out that he actually had attempted to jump again, and he actually did it, this time without a uh, suicide note, and he ended up injuring himself so hard that he ended up being hospitalized for quite some time. He also got hormonal therapy taken away from him because he actually was starting hormonal therapy at the time, but while he seemed to have been happy about it, he still went and did this and injured himself so much. And I still talked to him after that. As a matter of fact, it seemed like who was his sister ended up contacting me directly to let me know what had happened to him, referring to him as Frankie as well, but was still calling Frankie a she or a her, which was definitely confusing. But I ended up talking to Frankie after that point, and he was alive for quite some time, but he made it clear that he felt absolutely miserable. He injured himself so heavily that he just was, from that day forward, daily in pain. And he regretted actually wanting to jump. I was bummed that he actually had injured himself and injured himself so awfully, but at the very same time, I was at least glad that he regretted what he tried to do. And the issue, though, was that this wasn't taking away his desire for suicide. And when I became a Christian, I actually tried to talk to him about that quite a lot, actually. I sent him videos. I tried to talk to him very gently about what was really going on with him, what may have actually been the case of what was happening to him. And he didn't exactly want to talk about it. Not only that, but he labeled Christians as hypocrites. And the issue, of course, with people taking that stance is either that is because a Christian is preaching the gospel about not doing sin, but they're sinning the very same things that they're saying not to do, and either they're on a high horse or they're acting like they're not doing that kind of thing at all. The other part could be when people are just unable to understand the concept of sin, of repenting over one's sin, and the fact that we are all sinners who have struggled against this stuff. Because while you become a Christian, that helps change who you are as a person, and it helps change what you believe, it changes your goals. While that's the case, that doesn't just, help you suddenly overcome all these sins, all these temptations that you're dealing with. Of course, this is just hard for people to believe. My mom, when I was a kid especially, clearly had that viewpoint about Christianity, and understandably so. Details I won't go into, but the point is that for quite some time, I even held the very same viewpoint about Christianity and those values. What sucks is just that I really do actually have a lot of sympathy for these people who are in this whole transgender movement, who believe themselves to be trans, because a lot of these people have mainly just been so awfully screwed up. It's not even funny. And I say it like that because a huge chunk of this transgender movement, whether people want to admit it or not, is a perverted movement. It isn't just simply perverse in the fact that you are going against God's design, but it's perverted because the ridiculous vast majority of these people have been sexually manipulated, and they have things that they basically get a rush from. And to be completely honest, there was definitely a side of this for him, even though he believed that he simply was just feeling like he was somehow born in the wrong body and God made a mistake in him being born as a man. The issue here is that when transgender people actually go out of their way to go into the surgery, to get hormonal therapy, so on and so forth, they do it because they believe that they're actually going to fix this problem that they are dealing with somehow, some way. The point is that that just doesn't work. In the case of Frankie, he could have actually somehow he could have somehow fixed his he could have fixed his suicidal feelings if it was just as simple as him actually somehow just needing to go out of his way and take hormones, or perhaps somehow even do the surgery that would cut your penis inside out to turn it into some sort of a vagina somehow. It's not possible. Not only is it not possible, it's scientifically impossible. And those who have gone out of their way to go all the way into actually doing these surgeries, it didn't fix anything for them. In Frankie's case, he was finally taking hormones, and yet he still wanted to jump from a building. It wasn't fixing anything. And there are many, well, I will just say as testimonies, not Christian testimonies, but testimonies nonetheless, of people who were a part of the transgender movement, who believed themselves to have been born in the wrong body as the wrong gender, and how badly they wanted to somehow fix that issue. And the number one example I can point to, if any at all, is an interview in the documentary called What is a Woman by Matt Walsh. If you are subscribed to Daily Wire, you can watch the documentary, and it is, I'd say, a hugely important documentary to watch if you are on either side of this argument, whether you believe yourself to believe that these people really are somehow born in the wrong bodies and that they can just somehow switch their gender over at the snap of fingers if they had the money and the resources to do it somehow. Whether you're like that, or whether you actually do realize that this is some sort of an issue that many people are struggling with, not in the way that they believe they're struggling with it, but in the way that this is a mental battle that they are going through, an emotional battle, and in many cases even a sexual battle. The interview that I am referring to in What is a Woman is with this transgender woman to man who went and did the whole surgery about becoming a man, and she was dealing with a lot that finally hit her when she did the whole surgery, to where she's like, yeah, I hated that I did this. I regret it deeply, and I wish I had never done it in the first place. This is all down to the fact that she also was talking about how this is awful that children are being groomed so heavily into this belief, and parents are talking for their children and saying that they believed themselves to be the wrong gender, and being able to make the decision for their child to basically transition them before they even know what they believe. When a kid is a kid and they're figuring life out at a very, very, very long beginning, and even having just a sliver of understanding for life. The point that I'm trying to make here is that this movement is actually extremely damaging. It is extremely, extremely damaging. And it's so limiting due to the fact that people can't even have a conversation in questioning these details to begin with. People cannot simply question what is going on in terms of their feelings or anything like that. Because if you actually are a part of this movement and you decide to try and have a public talk about any of these details, about however you actually feel, you're going to try and be censored immediately. There cannot be any discussion about this not being the case. Even if you are someone who was transgender, made the surgery, and is not happy and believes that this is a huge mistake, you are not allowed to publicly talk about this. The bottom line is, there's a huge side of me that feels like I did not talk to Frankie enough before he died about the biblical truth. He wasn't exactly open to it, and that is still his decision at the end of the day, but so much of it was the fact that I really, really, I feel bad that I couldn't have saved him. And what's terrible is that this death has had an impact on many people, and understandably so. People who are family and people who are friends, and understandably so, because this is just... It's disappointing. It is very disappointing that something like this can take a person's life. And his family is clearly very much full of grief for him, that what seems to be happening here is that they were not happy with my post about Frankie. And this is also questionable, if only due to the fact that Frankie told me, I will say once again, that he told me that his family did not support his transgender identity. They didn't want to play along and call him a girl and all that other stuff. And he made it a big deal. He made it clear that it was something he was heavily struggling with in just that alone. And despite this, ever since I made a comment about Frankie dying and making a post about it in the first place, his friends and supposed family have been contacting me and very much having a full-on leftist meltdown about what is even being said, what is even being gotten into. And one of these people is claiming to be his mother, and she could be, but claiming to be his mother, who is mad that I am calling Frankie by his name and also calling him a guy. And I doubt that it actually is his mom, if only because of the fact that Frankie told me that his family did not support this gender identity thing, and because of this, he was so disappointed, he was so depressed. And not once, especially after his attempt at suicide, did he actually come out and say, it's interesting, if only because he never reached out going, hey, things are getting better, like my family's actually starting to accept me for who I believe I am, basically. There was never any sort of talk like that. Not only was there never any talk like that, but what is even more of an interesting situation is that her friends and family are going out of their way to now attack me, it seems, over the fact that I am speaking out honestly about the kind of friendship I had with Frankie, that I am speaking out about having saved him in the first place, speaking out about how I especially believe that this was hurting him, speaking out about how I believe that he should have come to Christ about this issue that he is struggling with. Not only has the person who's claiming to be his mom called me without me giving my phone number to them and leaving a message telling me to respect her daughter, to mourn her respectfully. And now, as a comment in this live stream, I am being told, tell your viewers how you had an inappropriate relationship with her like you did on her posts. And I did mention that. I'm not going into how I met him. I'm not going into what we did, because that is not necessary. That's just simply the case. It is not necessary. I admit that I did not have an appropriate relationship with Frankie. I'm not going to deny that. But now, this person is also telling me I own her pictures and will be suing you for defamation. Not only free speech is something to take note of here, but more importantly, these are pictures of a man that was on his public Facebook profile that I am friends with, I have been friends with for many, many years, and I'm pretty sure that a person cannot own photos of a person whether they're dead or alive. Because of that, I'm not scared about these threats that I have been given. I side with Jesus Christ and God, and in the name of Jesus Christ, I will not be strong-armed into playing a play-pretend game about this. I even started calling Frankie by his name and referring to him as he before his death. He died in his sleep, and I'm at least glad that he did not kill himself, but I won't lie, I definitely cried hard when I found out that he is gone. I just flat out pray that this kind of issue that many people are struggling against does not continue to go out of hand to where many, many lives are taken over this. It is why it is important that children are being protected against this transgender agenda. It is why parents are supposed to have the medical say on their children to make those decisions for them, because children cannot make such decisions for themselves and yet the courts are trying to rule against parents staying firm on that. Courts are trying to even take the rights of one parent away for another parent to somehow do this, and it's ridiculous. And yeah, that's honestly just about it. There really is nothing else that I can say. And this person who is claiming to be his mother yet again is yet again giving a live chat message saying, using my daughter's death for attention is absolutely pathetic. I feel sorry that you are so lonely and have no one in your life that you need to use my daughter's unexpected passing for you to feel. And I just feel sorry that whoever this is, whether they really are his mom or not, I more so feel sorry that you have to, if you really are his mom, look back at not calling him a woman or calling him Francesca because you lost a son. Not a daughter, but a son. And that is absolutely heartbreaking. I hold no ill will, no hatred towards the likes of his family or his friends. It is absolutely tragic what happened to Frankie. It is tragic what happened to him, and it is tragic that he did not understand the depth to what was happening in his life. This guy needs help. This guy needed help, is what I should say, because while he didn't take his life, what may be sad is that he may have not been able to become a Christian before his passing. And I am disappointed at that reality because I cared about that guy a lot. He was one of my best friends online. He meant a lot to me. We had some of the most fun talks ever over just dumb, nerdy stuff. He was there for me when what happened between me and my dad happened. At the end of the day, this guy really did have a good heart. I held no ill will for him, nor his family, nor his friends. I'm just sad that I wasn't able to help him more. To anyone who is watching this at a later time, thank you for watching. And if you guys need any sort of chance to talk about this subject because of how many people have been struggling through this, go ahead. Just know that I'm not going to be a part of a debate on whether what I said was okay because of the quote misgendering claim, nor anything like that. I'm not going to be a part of that, and I'm also not going to just simply take harassment over this. To end this stream, I'm going to say a prayer. Dear Lord, we come here before you for Frankie Barrientos, a man who was struggling over his identity as a man, who believed that you had somehow made a mistake in making him a man. Whether I had appropriate friendship, whether I had an appropriate friendship with him or not, I prayed for this man every day after I became a Christian